I got a queen. Queen's good. I love get the queen. I'm very good with an extra queen. I'm even better with checkmate. 1, 2, 3. Checkmate in 3. That's it. 2184. He was 2228. It was all right. What I wanted to do this morning is I borrowed this book from this friend of mine, and people were asking me, I just see how many viewers there are, 13 viewers. Oh, thank you, viewers. I want to thank all 13 viewers for coming in. If you're not in the chat, like Tippy goes first in, my loyal, wonderful subscriber, Tippy Go, he's in, one of the first people, and he's showing his Grandmaster Teddies. He's got his Grandmaster Teddy. Here's a good morning, Grandmaster. Good morning. Look at this. Look at this book. Wow. It's a Sahovsky Informateur. That's right. This is a fantastic book, right? And what I'm going to do is, lots of people have asked me, they've said, John, what would you recommend how I could improve my chess? So I suggested to them, get this book, get a book. It doesn't have to be this year. This is a special FIDE, F-I-D-E, FIDE, World Chess Federation book of all the best games or the most relevant games that were considered to be theoretically important in the year 2008. And the Sahovsky Informator comes out about every year. So I recommended to beginners and people that wanted to improve, my recommendation to them was to do what I did. This is how I became a master. Every night before I'd go to bed, I'd play through 1 or 2 chess games, right? And what I'd do is I used to start at the very beginning, but you don't have to. You can just choose the games that you like or whatever. And they're just beautifully presented. They've got diagrams and the games are just easy to play, right? And the first game I'm going to choose for you, I want to play through a game with you. So if you join my chat, what I'm going to do from now on is I'm going to play through 2 games. We're going to talk about the games, and it's going to be like interactive chess coaching, right? So I want to help you improve. G'day, Stephen112. Very good, thank you, Stephen. Okay. Yes, the French can be a good French, Jules Howe. Please consider joining my channel, right? There you go. There we go. So, wait a second. It's, yeah, so if you're watching and you want to watch my stream, just come in. You can just click on that link and then come in and do the follow my channel. But what I'm going to do is I've decided that when I'm streaming, I'm going to play through 1 or 2 games each time I stream, and we're going to do chess coaching for you and try to improve your game and at the same time enjoy the beautiful game of chess. And the first one we're going to do is we're going to take from the 2008 Sahovsky Informateur, produced by FIDE. We're going to take Aronian. I'll just make sure you can see that. That's the game that we're going to play through. We're going to play through Grandmaster Aronian 2750 versus Anand. Okay? Vishwanathan Anand. And to do that, we're going to go to the chess.com analysis room. Right, we're going to go to the chess.com analysis room. If I can find it. If I can find it. Where's that analysis room? Prove me wrong. Why can't I? Oh, there it is. Analysis. Here we go. And I'll play through the game. It was played in Mexico City in 2007. And Aronian, as you know, is a very strong grandmaster, 2,750. And Anand was 2,792, just a few points short of 2,800. And the first move that's played is D4. And Aronian is playing the white pieces. And Vishwanathan Anand replies with knight f6. Now, I'm not just going to play through the game. I want to explain things to you from a beginner's point of view. And we're going to go through every single move of this game. And this is the way to learn how to play chess. I want all my followers, I want my followers that come to my channel to be the best chess players on chess.com. Really, I want to improve the standard of my players to be better than any other channel, right? So what I do, and I do it, I believe I do it well, is I train you to think in plain terms, not complex grandmaster terms, but terms that you can understand, right? So that you can build the building blocks of your chess will be solid foundations, and your actual games will improve. And then I might even start up a team John Curtis or something like that, or the magician's team. We'll call it the magician's team. But we'll do that later. But firstly, we have to train you to learn to play chess, right? If I can, I'll make every one of you a chess master. I'll do my best, right? Okay, so D4, knight to F6, C4, okay? Now, the whole idea behind this opening, right? The whole idea behind this opening is, for white's going to try to control the centre. Okay, I know I'm going back to basics, but when you're playing a chess game, that's how you have to think. You've got to think, what am I doing? And what is my purpose? A lot of people say, oh, what's my purpose for living, right? It's to enjoy life. And what's my purpose for playing chess? Is your purpose to win? Is your purpose to enjoy the game? Is your purpose to be sociable with your friends and at the same time have enjoyment of the game? Everyone's different, and I recognise that. I recognise that all you people out there are all different, and I want to embrace that difference. And so I'm trying to cover as many psychological aspects as possible so that we can enter your head, and because I've got to do that to improve your games. So if you want to be interactive, come into the chat, talk to me. Okay, so Krell 54, he likes the idea. He wants Bobby Fischer games. Krell 54, have I got something for you? Krell 54, have I got something for you? Krell 54 wants Bobby Fischer games. Wait for it. Wait, Krell. I'm just going to switch screens for a second. Krell, are you watching? Are you watching this? What am I holding, Krell? What am I holding? Look at this. It's Curacao 1962 with Bobby Fischer and Tigran Petrosian. The toughest games of chess ever played in history. That's right. It was the tournament of Curacao 1962. The candidates for the world title, right? And who was playing? Korchnoi, Petrosian. Bobby Fischer, Palbenko, Mikhail Tal, all world champions, right? Oh, well, Benko wasn't a world champion. Paul Keres one of the greatest players never to have been a world champion. But we got Korchnoi. I mean, he was one of the greatest players to have never been a world champion. We got Bobby Fischer, world champion. Tal, world champion. Geller, another theoretician, you know, that like a world champion's best trainer. Paul Keres, and we got Petrosian. Oh, what a candidates match that was. When Jan Timman wrote about it in his book, he said the 1962 candidates tournament in Curacao was one of the fiercest chess battles of all time. Of all time! At the height of the Cold War, 8 players contested the right to challenge the world champion, Mikhail Botvinnik. The great Mikhail Botvinnik. Oh, right, we talk about modern chess. This was without computers. These were the toughest of chess minds, right? And I've got that for you. And when I stream, I've got my little chess stream here for chess.com. When I'm streaming on Sunday, next Sunday, I'm going to start doing a special on the Curacao 1962 candidates. Okay, Krell, I'll be doing that next Sunday. So if you tune in next Sunday, Australian Eastern Standard Time, it'll be actually 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. I'm going to start it, right, 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. So you might have to adjust it to your time slot. But that's when I'll be doing it. And so many of the games, I think 60% of the games analysed by Timman in this book were by Bobby Fischer, right? So we'll be going through that and we'll be talking about the games, okay? But for the moment, we're going to go through, we're looking through the game of Aronian, 2750, the great Grandmaster Aronian, and the great Grandmaster Vishwanathan, Anand. And Aronian is playing the white pieces here, okay? C4, E6. Now, the reason for doing this is he wants to, in some variations, go for the bishop b4 check. He wants the option. He might want to just play support d5 with the e6 pawn, support his d5 thrust, and contest the centre, okay? And he may be looking at his opening the pawn, so he can move his bishop to e7 and castle, and get his king in a safe position. Okay, knight to f3. Okay, so Aronian plays knight to f3, and now black can, in this position, this would be the Bogo Indian defense, the Bogo Indian. The idea is basically to bring the bishop out early and to castle, right? However, black may choose to play d5. Let's have a look and see what the great Vishwanathan Anand plays. Right? He plays d5. Now this is around about the time that Botvinnik was the world champion then, and this position was like a standard world. If you're playing in a world championship match with Botvinnik, this is the type of position you would see. Right? And we all know Vishwanathan did become world champion, didn't he? Knight to c3. Well, I believe Petrosian might have won this candidates. I'm not too sure. I think Petrosian won this candidates to qualify for the world title. It was very, very... this is this candidates here, I should say. In 1962, I'm thinking of this book, this wonderful book. In 62, the candidates, Petrosian, I think, won. Bobby Fischer said that the Russians rigged the candidates for the world title. He said they rigged it. And it was proven later, it was actually proven later, that the Russian Federation did rig the World Championship. They rigged it. So Bobby Fischer, even then at the younger age, could have been world champion if the Russians hadn't rigged the tournament. But they rigged it and had purposeful draws between each other so they could make sure that their candidate got through to the world title. Okay, very easy. You see, you have a couple of draws, and that way the player that you want to promote hasn't got the losses. Okay, hasn't got any losses, and so that way when he gets a win or two, his score is going to be, his averages is going to be higher, isn't he? So it's very cunning by the Russians, right? D5, knight to c3 was played. But we're not there now. Right now we're back in 2008. Actually, we're back in 2007 for the purposes of this game. This game was played in Mexico City, 2007. Okay, so knight c3, c6 is played. Okay, now here we got like this Catalan set up. I've got lovely pawn structure. See that lovely pyramid pawn structure? Right, the base pawns are here and here. And that's what we're trying to do. We're doing chess coaching here. We're not just playing through a game of chess, we're coaching, right? Okay. So not only that, now that we have that pawn structure set, this bishop moves beautifully between the squares. We're looking at possible endgames. You say, oh, but John, we're only in the opening. No. The grandmasters are actually thinking like the game is an end game, right? When the grandmasters think and they look at their pawn structure, they look at their pieces, they look at their piece coordination, their pawn coordination, what they're really doing is they're formulating an overall structural game, right? Structural battle, right? Chess is a battle, a structural chess battle to control squares, key squares, right? So c6 was played. Bishop g5, okay. Bishop g5 by the great Aronian. Vishwanathan responds with h6. Now, why would he play h6? You might ask, well, why don't you get your pieces out, right? Why don't you take the free pawn? Okay. These are the types of questions that go through your chess mind. You say, well, hold on, there's a free pawn there. And yes, you can take the pawn. You can take the pawn and hold it. You can hold on real tight. You got to hold on. But remember, you're playing Aronian, right? Imagine you're sitting there and you're playing Aronian, right? You say, oh, hold on, but I've been taught by Fidemaster John Curtis, the magician. I can hold on against Aronian. Yes, you can. But you've got to have a look at how Vishwanathan thinks, right? Okay, so Vishwanathan, this is what Vishwanathan is thinking in his head. I'll tell you what he's thinking. And how do I know what Vishwanathan was thinking? You say, oh, John, how do you know? I can tell by what he plays, right? He's left the evidence behind, right? For those of you that don't know, for over 20 years, I was a fraud investigator. That's right. I was a criminal fraud investigator, a financial crimes investigator. So when you're a financial crimes investigator, what do? You look for the evidence, don't you, right? And then you can draw a conclusion based on the evidence what actually transpired. Well, chess is the same. It's all about analysis and the evidence, right? And so the evidence here of what Vishwanathan was thinking is how Vishwanathan set up his pawn structure, okay? So Vishwanathan has set up his pawn structure on white squares, right, to control white squares. And now Vishwanathan's pieces can move effectively on black squares. That's the squares that are around the pawns, right? Okay. So what does Vishy want to do now that he's fortified his white squares? All right, this is what he wants to do. He wants to control the black squares. That's right. To be your chess world champion, I don't want to just control the white squares. I don't want to control the black squares. I want to control the whole board. This is all about control, mind control, right? Mind control. And so this is why he plays H6. Because he knows that if the black bishop takes the knight, when the queen recaptures, he's eliminated the black squared bishop, right? That makes this bishop twice as strong, right? So that's why he plays H6. And that's why Aronian says, no, I don't want to take your knight, okay? So what was the purpose of Aronian moving his bishop to g5 in the first place? Well, the reason is development. He wants to be able to bring his rook over here to c1 to support the centre, right? Develop his queen side. Is there anything that's lacking in the position that you can see? Can anybody? Krell, Scanteri. Yes, can I stick it on YouTube? I can. Scanteri. Oh, that's right. I'm a fraud investigator. So what I do is I treat this this game like an investigation. So this is how I used to improve at chess. Okay. We've got 100 people come in, and what I discussed earlier, I'm going to repeat myself quite a lot here. This is going to be slow. It won't be boring. It's not going to be boring, believe me. We're going back to 2007 to Mexico City. That's what we're doing. I'll just let those people who joined in. We're back to Mexico City. It's Aronian versus Anand. And we're getting this book from the Fidemaster Informateur 2008, which my kind friend has lent me, right? And what I want to do is I want to do some chess coaching here. This is all about coaching you guys out there to be the best chess players you can possibly be. So you want to come in the chat, you want to join us, well then you can join us in the chat. Just follow my channel, come in and follow my channel, and I think you can. Right, okay. So anyway, I want to have a look. I just explained why the bishop returned to h5. D takes c4. Now that Vishwanathan has made the bishop go back, he's convinced now that Aronian will not capture the knight because the delay in with losing the black squares, the delay will only further enhance his ideas, right? But the point is, with the bishop not actively pinning the knight, and Vishy having the option of g5 chasing the knight, now that Vishy Anand says, well, there's a pawn there, I'm going to take it. Okay. So now we have like a semi-Slav defense, an anti-Moran, what's his name? What's it called? Chess.com calls it the semi-Slav defense, the anti-Moran, the anti-Moscow Gambit. Isn't that funny? The anti-Moscow Gambit. Bobby Fischer would have loved that name, because Bobby used to love to take on the Russians. Okay, so D takes c4. And now e4 by the mighty Aronian. Okay. So white now makes a decision that he has to have compensation for his pawn or try to recover his pawn. See, in chess, when we look at this position here, in chess, what Black's doing is he's challenging, putting question marks in White's mind. You're a pawn down now against one of the greatest players in the world. What are you going to do? The whole idea is Black saying, I can nullify any kingside attack that you've got. It's going to take you time to recover your pawn, your little piece here, this pawn. And then that way I will have time to develop the rest of my position to active play, right? That's why e4 is played. E4 is now played with the idea of e5 and with the idea of bishop takes pawn. But the main idea is just to recover the pawn and fully develop with the rooks and queens all interconnected in the back rank. You see, chess is all about piece coordination, about pawn structure, pawn coordination, if you can call it that, but pawn structure and the pieces working together with the pawn structure for a desired outcome. It's now the purpose of h6 becomes clear with Black's next move. The purpose of h6 becomes clear. You see, e5 is threatened, and now g5. G5 by the great Vishwanathan Anand to be future world champion and to be one of the greatest players India has ever produced. The light of India. You could call Anand the light of India. If you look at all the modern great chess grandmasters and you look at Title Tuesday, like I do regularly from week to week, usually late Title Tuesday, but you'll see a lot of new faces in chess. And they're coming from Russia and they're also coming from India, right? They're coming from all over the world, but it's amazing how many bright lights are coming from India. We may just see a new world chess champion come from India. Mark my words. Bishop to g3. And now b5. Now that he's taken the bishop away from this square, and he now decides to play b5 and protect the pawn. Now he's putting real questions. Anand is putting real questions to Aronian. There are real questions. Now, when you look at the position, you have to examine all the structural pieces. When you look at this position, you say, oh, it looks complicated. No. So what I want you to do is, as your chess coach, as your personal chess coach, what I want you to do is I want you to learn how to break down and analyze a position, right? Okay. So I'm going to go through this position with you, and we're going to have a look. We're going to look at the pros and cons for both sides. And then when we understand the position, we'll see if we can guess White's next move, right? That's going to be a big job. Okay, but here we go. Okay, firstly in chess, the most important thing of all that you do when you're analysing any position, right, is you examine all checks and captures, right? Well, can White check Black? No, there's no checks there. I can't see any checks. Can Black check White? Now, this is very important. because what you've got to say to yourself is this. With beginners that play chess, and even players up to 1400, what they do is they make this big mistake. They look at what they are doing, but they don't look at what their opponent's doing. So when we use that chess rule, examine all checks and examine all captures, right? You've got to do it for both sides, because the board is not made up of just one set of pieces. There's two people playing this game, right? Right? There's two people. There are two generals here using their best tools to win the war. And it's a war. It is a war, right? Okay, so we know that there's no checks for white. There's no checks for black. There's no clear checks. So now we have a look at captures. What can white capture? Well, white could take that pawn, but he would lose the knight because the pawn would recapture. So we examine the recapture. Okay, so that's no good. Okay. Is black threatening to take anything? Well, black can't take that pawn because the knight would recapture. So that doesn't work. So there are no checks and no captures. Very important, because they are the most critical moves in chess. A check is important because it must be replied to. If you're in check, you must capture the piece or interpose with another piece to block the check, or move away with your king, right? So checks and captures are vitally important to look for. Now we're going to examine the pawn structure. We all know that in this position, wait a second, go back. We all know that when in this position, when that pawn was here on b7, and this pawn was on d5 was here, there's a beautiful pawn structure, right? So black has foregone all that. And now, are there any weaknesses for black? This is what white's got thinking. It's white's move. White's got to look at the position and say, well, hasn't Vishwanathan got any weaknesses in his position? These pawns are on their original squares. So, say I'm Mr. Aronian. This is how Aronian's thinking. He's saying, well, my pawns are good here. I don't have to worry about them. They're good pawns. Can he trap my bishop? Can he go here and here? No, he can't do that, because I could always take that pawn. I can run away. So is he threatening anything like that? No. So what else have I got? Well, I've got two pawns in the middle, because we're trying to think like Aronian. I've got two pawns in the middle. Should I push my pawn? Oh, I don't like that. If I push this pawn, it blocks my bishop. Well, what's the purpose of having my bishop blocked? So I don't think he wants to push the pawn. Okay? So what else can he do? Well, he could say, well, I'd like to attack these pawns because I'm a pawn down. He might threaten to push the pawn on my knight. If he pushes the pawn on my knight, if I move my knight, he's going to take this pawn. Oh, obviously Anand's threatening me. This is what Aronian's thinking. He's thinking, oh, he's threatening me. So I've got to play a good positional move here. And how do I stop this pawn move threatening my pawn? I don't want to push it. Okay. Do I want to take the knight? So examine all captures. Do I want to take the knight? Aronian's thinking, should I take the knight? No, because I don't want to do that with my bishop, because he would just recapture with the rook, and his rook would protect his pawn. So I'm helping him. So I don't want to help him. So my name is Aronian. I'm one of the best players in the world. What on earth do I do to stop this move? What if I play pawn here? My name is Aronian. What if I play pawn here? Thank you for Monty Lext. Thanks for following the channel. Appreciate that. So welcome to Monty Lext. He came in and followed our channel. So now, what about pawn here? That's a worry. Should I stop the pawn with pawn here? Well, it doesn't really stop it, does it? Because he still could play pawn here and pawn here. He could also just push the pawn, and if you capture with the pawn, develop a bishop, right? So, and then, so if you play pawn here, you play pawn here, pawn takes, bishop takes, and he's still got knight takes pawn. And you think, oh, hold on, well, what do I do? Well, if you want to keep your structure intact, this is what Aronian chose. It's not an easy move to find, right? And that's why Aronian's a better player than you and I. He played knight to e5. Now, there's several reasons for that. What Aronian's doing is, Aronian's saying, well, I've sacrificed the pawn, right? You sacrificed the pawn for active play, okay? And what he's trying to do is he's trying to identify weaknesses. See, white, by taking this pawn, taking this c pawn, and protecting it with b5, he's moved his base pawn. This was his base pawn here on b7, right? His base pawn was on b7. And so now he's created a hole there, and there's a white square here, that white square, and this knight is coming on c6. So that means that this knight can't move because you're going to lose a pawn. So he's tying up. He's losing a pawn again, but he's tying up certain squares. For instance, for example, if you push the pawn on the knight, right? If you push the pawn on the knight might just go here. And yes, you can take this pawn here, but the white knight then could take this pawn, or the bishop could take the c pawn. You've got to remember, passed pawns, when they go forwards, they can't go backwards, right? So it's not really good to push this pawn. There's another reason for it too. When you're analysing a position, what you have to do is you also have to look at the amount of development your opponent has got, and the amount, and by that I mean the activity of the pieces, right? Okay, so if we want to look at piece activity and we want to understand the position, you've got to look at the piece activity, right? So white's got piece activity, the bishop to here, right? If the bishop, right? Particularly if this pawn moves forwards to capture this pawn here. But the net result, the overall board result will be that black will be significantly behind in development. So why am I saying this? Well, there's a bishop developed, this bishop, it's 1, right? 3 points, right? 3 points for white. The knight's developed, okay, on a key square. Can't be removed just yet. That's 3 more points. That's 6 points of development. This knight here's up, developed. Even if it goes over here, it's still 2 to 3 points of development. That's 9 points of development. The bishop's developed or semi-developed. That's about 2 points of development. It's 11 points of development. Okay. And the queen has got a beautiful possibility of queen here, threatening checkmate, if the knight takes the pawn after pawn here. Okay? Right? So the queen's got spatial development too. Queen's right in this game with lots of square control. This queen's in the game too, but to a slightly limited degree. Okay? Black's got a knight. It's sort of in the game to a limited degree. This bishop is very strong. Excellent bishop. That's probably black's best piece. So if you want to identify what black's best pieces are, they're the bishop and knight, right? It is possible, of course, in chess to overwhelm your opponent in certain positions without even developing your queen side, should the occasion present itself. But overall, in this position, what black doesn't want white to do is to become super active with these 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces, 4 minor pieces, to 2, 1, 2, okay? So that's what I'm trying to point out when we're looking at the board and we're trying to assess the position and what move we will choose next, okay? That's what we're trying to look at. We're trying to look at the piece activity, and because it's the pieces that come in will destroy you. So black can't afford to lack too much development, get too far behind. Okay. Black plays h5. Okay. Now black has chosen this move, and there are other options in the position. Another move to choose that would be possible would be bishop to b7, right? So bishop to b7, I like this move, bishop to b7, with the idea of protecting the pawn, and then this knight can go into the middle of the board and develop, right? So that's a developing process. Vishwanathan has decided h5. So Vishwanathan has decided to play h5. Now, is he threatening anything? You're playing white. You're playing white. Your name is Grandmaster Aronian. Have a look at the bar on the side of the board. It says white's got a slight initiative. Well, the point is, he's actually threatening to play pawn here and trap the bishop, right? That's a real threat, because white hasn't got any real king knockouts. You can't win a piece by taking one pawn and king takes back, and then there's no more attack. Well, you can't do that on a grandmaster level. So in other words, you have to parry the threat. You've got to stop the threat of pawn here. Doesn't matter what you do, you must find out a way to stop the threat. So we've assessed that it's very important that black get the pieces developed. But Vishwanathan, being a super grandmaster, he's decided, I'm going to delay development to harass the white bishop. Remember, this bishop has gone from here to here and back to here, and Vishy's saying, I want you to move again. But I don't think he's going to move. He could play pawn here, but it looks weak, right? That looks pretty pathetic. The big choices in this position, I would think, are h3 and h4. The reason h4 is a good possibility, I can see what Vishy's looking at. You see, isn't chess interesting? The more you understand the position and the more you talk about the position, the more you understand the complexities of the position, right? Okay, now this is what Vishy is really up to. It's deeper than what we thought, okay? Because that's why he's a super grandmaster. Your whole idea is Vishy wants you to play pawn here, right? Or pawn here. If you played pawn here, you know what Vishy does to you? I'll tell you what he does. If you played pawn here, Vishy will play pawn here, make you move your knight, and then you won't have time to take this because Vishy's going to go bang and hit your bishop, right? He's going to go bang and hit your bishop, and your pawn will be here when he hits your bishop. So you're going to move your bishop again. Can you see that? That's like a snowball. It's like a snowball or an avalanche, turning into an avalanche coming down a hill. What Vishy wants to do is he wants to run right over your position. He might look like a bespectacled Indian professor from a university, but he's a killer. He's a natural-born killer. Vishy Anand, he's a natural-born killer. I can tell you. How do I know? Because the evidence is there on the board. You can tell he's a natural-born killer by the way he's playing chess, right? He's deadly. He's quiet. Vishy Anand, he talks quietly and everything, right? But I'll tell you, he's a killer. He's a killer, right? I know. You know what my nickname was when I was playing chess? It was Killer Curtis. That was my nickname. So one killer can recognise another killer. Vishy Anand is a chess killer. That's what he is. And I mean that in the nicest possible way, because it's only a game of chess, right? Vishy Anand is a wonderful person, very spiritual man. We love him. Okay, so H5 is played. And now this is why H3 is not played, right? So you don't play H3 because of pawn here and knight takes pawn, threatening to bust your kingside. Not just bust your kingside, smash your kingside, right? It's really, really violent, right? It's violent chess, right? And we thought the position was quiet. Oh no, it's not quiet. And that is why the great Grandmaster Aronian plays H4. So his bishop cannot be disturbed. Not straight away, because now, right now, he's actually threatening pawn takes pawn. So black hasn't got time to play pawn here. Well, he might, but it's unlikely. It's complicated. It's really complicated. Pawn here is a complicated move. Pawn here. That is one hell of a complicated reply to pawn here. Let's have a look at what the great Vishy Anand decides to do next. Vishy says, I don't like pawn here. I think the timing is wrong, right? So Vishy Anand pushes the pawn past. Isn't that interesting? So Vishy Anand has calculated. He's actually done his deep grandmaster calculation. It's really complex calculation, but the variation would go something like this. It would go pawn here. If pawn there, pawn takes pawn. And then the pawn would take that knight, then you'd take that knight. Oh my God. And Vishy doesn't like the outcome. So that's why he plays pawn here and the pawn goes there. White replies with bishop e2. Now that this structure is secure, this structure is relatively secure, White needs to develop some more. White decided that he hasn't got time to go playing a3, which is very passive after b4. That's one move. But he wants to play bishop e2, right? He needs to castle. He wants to get his heavy material in there and build his position. Right? Vishy Anand says, well, I've tried all my shenanigans, right? All his little tricks. Vishy did have a few tricks there. He tried those, and none of them worked, but he was testing his opponent. Now he develops bishop b7. And White castles. Now, again, don't forget, between these moves, you're still going to do that principle. Examine all checks, examine all captures, right? But here, Black chose the solid bishop b7 because he doesn't want to compromise his pawn structure. right? He wants to keep that intact. He's got the extra pawn, and now he just wants to develop. What black has done, so what has black achieved by pushing those pawns? What did black achieve by pushing those pawns? Well, black achieved this. He no longer has the bishop pinning his knight against his queen. That in itself is an achievement. He still threatens pawn here, should he want to, when the correct time arises. That's if he gets a chance to, right? White's plan could be pawn here and pawn there, try to smash the king. Could be. Vichy plays knight b file to d7. A simple move, but all he wants to do is he wants to capture the knight. He wants to capture the knight, that's right. He's happy to capture the knight. White queen moves to c2. This is a very important move. This is probably one of the most important moves in the game. Oh, you examine all checks and examine all captures, yes. But after knight takes knight and queen recaptures, I don't think white's got much at all. If anything, he's just a pawn down, and I don't think he wants to play chess like that. So what he wants to do is what he chooses to do is to play queen to c2. It's a quiet developing move. Instead of the violence that Vichy Anand was contemplating earlier by pushing those kingside pawns, we now have a cat and mouse game, right? So Aronian and Vichy Anand are playing a cat and mouse game, okay? And the reason why white plays queen c2, chooses this move, is because it connects the two rooks, right? The two rooks are now connected, okay? It clears the way by playing queen here. You clear the way for rook on the a file to d1. Why d1? Because you want to thrust the pawn in the middle, possibly at some stage. You may want to play rook on the a file to d1 and then play rook on the e file to e1 before doing so. You may want to play rook on the a file to d1 and f3 and f4 and f5. But the point is white's got a plan. And now white, by playing queen c2, also stops pawn here and the capture of the e pawn attacking the bishop. Because now the e pawn is protected by the queen. So this is a multi-purpose move. It's the strongest move on the board. Black decides that white's got too much development, and he decides, I've got to alleviate the tension in the position before the castles come to get him, right? He says, oh no, Aronian's called up the reserves. Aronian's called up the reserves. The tanks are moving in. The tours, the tanks, the castles. So before all that happens, Vichy Anand wants to make sure that he can clear off a bit of the cavalry. So he clears off the cavalry by playing knight to e5. Right? So he wants the cavalry to be involved a bit. And now, if you take with the pawn, you block your bishop, right? Well, why would you want to block this bishop? So he recaptures with the bishop. Okay. And now the knight is pinned to the castle. Okay. I hope you guys are all understanding this position well. Scanteri says, it isn't the man with the teddy bear. That's right. But if it isn't the man with the teddy bear. what we're doing is we are going to do chess coaching for you. When I do my streams from now on, I'm going to play through at least one game, and I'm going to explain Grandmaster games, and I'm going to explain to you, I'm going to chess coach you. I want people that follow my channel to be the best chess players on chess.com. I really do, right? Okay, this is going to be one of my great streams, I'm telling you. You've joined the right stream here. Because we're not just looking at the position, we're talking about the mindsets of the players. We're trying to analyse the psychology of what they might be thinking and the methodology behind their madness, behind their chess madness, right? And we just want to find out the outcomes. Okay. And what we're doing is we're looking at, this game is between Aronian, 2,750, and Vishwanathan Anand playing the black pieces, 2,792 rating, played in Mexico City in 2007, that's right. Bishop G7 is chosen. Two-purpose move, right? Two purposes for the move. So if you were playing the white pieces and your name was Aronian, you would say, well, hold on, why did he do that? Okay? Two purposes. One, to remove the pin against the castle. Two, to develop the bishop. But more importantly, to give himself the option of castling kingside, right? Okay. Rook on the A file to D1. Did we discuss that move earlier? Am I thinking like a grandmaster already? Remember I told you, the queen moved to C2, powerful move, probably one of the most powerful moves on the board, cleared the two rooks, and that D5 could be a big threat. Why would D5 be a big threat, you say? You might ask. Well, if you look at the pawn configuration, we discussed the pawn structure, the pawn configuration earlier, right? There are holes in the position. So the pawns have moved slightly forward here and here. So small holes have appeared on our white squares. And if white wants to break through and attack black, well, he might want to do so on squares which black's trying to control the most, vis-a-vis the white squares, okay? I'm even looking at a move like with pawn here. After pawn takes, the queen could use that square. If this pawn's moved, queen to F5 could come in near the king. Could be an entry square. None of this has to happen straight away, mind you. This can all be played slowly and methodically, and he might build up to that. He might do preparatory moves like F4 with the idea of F5. There are lots of possibilities in the position. Black decides to castle to place his king in a safe position. Excuse me. Now, white's next move, I don't understand it. Oh, yes, I do. I do understand it. I said I don't understand it, but I do. He plays bishop G3. See, the bishop, the white squared bishop can't be attacked there. Maybe now that the king's castled, he wants to play E5 and knight to E4. The idea of knight there, I'll show you this. Have a look at this move, right? Pawn there. Oh, a second. Yeah, it's black has a move. But imagine this move. Pawn here, right? Knight moves. The knight moves off F6. Then knight here. and knight to g4 would threaten checkmate, right? Because the queen could checkmate there, protected by the knight on that square. The knight would be here, and queen could checkmate once that knight's moved. So that's a possibility. Pawn here, remove the knight, then play knight e4, then play knight g5, and then checkmate with a queen. Can we see that? I'll repeat it again. He might have moved the bishop back to play pawn here, remove the knight, because we're threatening to take the knight, there's no other move, and then when the knight moves, knight e4 and knight g5, okay? And there'd be no defence without weakening your structure. Now, white doesn't have to do that, but the point is, it's an option. Knight to d7, okay? Now, what white decides to do is he wants to open this castle's line of attack, right? Whether it be right or wrong, I don't like it myself. I did like his earlier plan, e5. I liked that. I liked his earlier plan. That looks like a good move. But this is what he chose. He chose f3. And I think that's a bit... It doesn't look... It looks good because it's challenging that pawn. But is that enough? I mean, he wants to break through and open the king slowly. But Vishwanathan has got an exclamation mark move. C5! Exclamation mark, right? And previously in that position, queen to b6 had been played, right? He plays c5, exclamation mark. White plays d takes c5. Now, I don't like it. I don't like white's game now anymore because I always wanted to push the pawn. Can you see the problems? Can you see the problems that have occurred now with f3? Black's been given a counter chance. Now you can't play d5 because of the bishop check. Because you're not getting in like you were before. You're not getting in anymore. The attack is all slowed down. Right? So it looks like my move was better than Aronian's move. It does. It looks like my move was better than Aronian's. Aronian wanted to play pawn here and try to go in here, which is against weaker players and international masters. It might have worked. But Vishwanathan has seen this move, c5. Wow. Anyway, c5 was played. D takes c5. Queen to e7. He just moves out off the pin. See the pin? The rook is pinning the knight. So he just moves off the pin. And suddenly black's pieces are all active, right? And you can't take the pawn because the queen takes pawn check and queen takes knight. Remember we spoke earlier about piece coordination. That's what's happening here. The great Vishwanathan is giving us a chess lesson on piece coordination. King to h1 was played. Now, he doesn't like this, he doesn't want him to get a check, right? And why can't he play bishop here? Oh, he doesn't like that move because the queen takes pawn. Look at this. You might think, oh, I see a good move. You can play bishop here, right? And then you can win the rook. No, he plays queen takes pawn. If you take the rook, he will checkmate you. He will checkmate you, right? So it doesn't work. So king to h1 is played. But this king is a bit weak because the queen's on that pawn. The engine said king h1, question mark, exclamation mark. And suggested bishop to d6 is terrible, but could turn into a draw. a6 was played. He just protects those beautiful pawns. And now a4. He wants to break those pawns apart. Bishop c6 was played to just hold those pawns together. And now knight to d5 was played. Question mark, it says. Black captured the knight. The pawn recaptured. Now what he's looking at here is he's looking at trying to be, if the bishop goes back, he can push the pawn on, see? And he can get his piece back. Oh no! Vishwanathan, he's a killer. He's a killer, this Vishwanathan. G'day, Scan Terry. G'day, Hawker. I want to thank Hawker, who subscribed with Prime, Hawker 2100, for his comments. I want to thank Scan Terry too. He's off to he's focused on other things. So if you come into my chat and I'm analysing a game like this, you've got to be prepared to spend a bit of time, right? What time is it in Australia? It's 10:04 a.m. Dragon Rider, he'd need to Google that. He's from Germany. And Sam the Bannerman, 10:03. If you want to see the rest of this game and you do have to leave for some reason, that's the game that we're talking about. You could always look it up on chessgames.com. That's the game we're talking about. It's Aronian versus Anand, played in Mexico City, right? And now I've got to get back to where I was. The game won't last much longer. He played bishop e5. Our hero, your hero and mine, Vishwanathan Anand. White played f4. You can't take the bishop because of knight takes bishop and queen takes pawn checks threatened. So he can't take it. So he played f4. The bishop went to g7, back to g7. It's achieved its job. It's blocked this bishop and turned it into a pawn. D takes c6. Aronian has recovered his piece. Knight captures c5. What a powerful knight this is. Eh? What a powerful knight. Rook to d5. He says, I don't like your knight and I want to smash your king. He says, I don't like your knight and I want to smash your king. Knight goes to e4. He says, go over and take a pawn off, but your bishop's on prise. I'm attacking your bad bishop. Bishop e1 was played. And of course now, if black plays pawn here for queen takes pawn check, it can be stopped with rook takes pawn. That's what you call piece coordination by the mighty Aronian. So Aronian is still attacking key squares. It's still a battle. It's still a big battle going on. Queen to e6 is played. And he's just simply threatening to take the castle. I don't know why he allows the h-pawn to go. But he does. Rook to h5. This is carefully calculated by Vishwanathan and Anand. And now the purpose of allowing the rook to take that pawn. You say, well, but why did he let him take the pawn? He wanted to trap the rook. Yes, he wanted to trap the rook. The rook's trapped. Okay, so the king goes to h2. And black plays rook on the a file to c8. And black's saying to Aronian, what I'm about to do is I'm about to murder you, right? Because you're playing a castle down, when my castles infiltrate your central squares on d3, right, particularly d3, when my pieces come in there, you will die a terrible death, right? Bishop to b4 was played. He wants to chase the rooks around. Rook on the f file to e8. No, he wants to attack the bishop. A takes b5. Recaptures. Rook to e1. He says, oh no, I might do a discovered attack. The queen slips back to f7 and attacks the rook, making the rook a nice clear line for down the open file. The rook goes to g5. Now there could be a real threat here of bishop c3. This could be a problem. Knight takes g5. He takes that. F takes because the rook was trapped. And now rook takes c6. This is mopping up time now. This is what we call mopping up the mess, right? It's all over now. Bishop to f1. Rook takes e1. He's cleaning him up. The bishop takes the e1. Rook e6. Oh, this was a powerful game. Bishop c3. Queen to c7. He's threatening a check. Protects it. Rook e3. So now you can't take anything. Queen to g2. Bishop takes c3. B takes c3. Oops, I've made a mistake. Oh, f4. What happened there? And anyway, that was basically the end of the game. It was all over. Vishwanathan beat Aronian. So I think we're just going to leave it at that one game for today. We'll leave it at that one game. And what I see, this all came about because why did I analyse that game today, taken from the Sahovsky Informator 2008? Well, the reason why I played through that game today was because people have asked me, they say, oh, John, how do I improve in chess? And I say to them, what I want you to do is go through a Grandmaster game every day, or if you can do 2, that's good. Usually it's best when you come home from work or whatever, or you're sitting down, you're relaxing, instead of turning on the TV set, listening to the commercials, you can improve your chess. right? Yeah, sit down and play through a Grandmaster game and try to understand why they make the moves that they do. And you will improve out of sight. That's how I became a master. And I want to share my joy of chess with all of you guys, right? So I want you guys to do the same. I want you to all improve, and maybe everybody that watches my channel will one day be a master. I might be able to get you up to that level if I hang around and live long enough. And I'm not saying it'll take you 20 years. Some of you will become masters very, very quickly, right? You will, right? Because there's a lot of talented people out there. So I get people come into my chat and they play me, they challenge me at chess, right? They challenge me, and they're good players. They're good players, and I can see the natural talent there. But from a developmental point of view, like jumping up those extra 200 rating points, you have to understand how chess works. That's why I'm here. I'm here for you. I'm here to teach you. And I enjoy teaching. I really do. I don't do it for money or anything like that. I do it because I enjoy it. And on Sunday, next Sunday, I'm going to be looking at Jan Timman's book, Curacao, 1962. Curacao, 1962. The greatest candidates tournament, the biggest battles of all time between all the world champions, all the future world champions, right? We've got Bobby Fischer, we've got Tigran Petrosian. We've got them all. They're all there. All the boys were there, all right. Ephraim Geller was there, the great theoretician. Mikhail Tal was there. Paul Keres was there. My goodness gracious. They were all there. Victor Korchnoi was there. All trying to get ready to play, or to contest to play the great Mikhail Botvinnik, right? And Bobby Fischer said the Russians cheated. They colluded together. That was world news. World news. Curacao, 1962. That was the tournament. It's a beautiful book. It's from written by Jan Timman, right? Great grandmaster. Great grandmaster. And I'm not being paid to review his book. I just love his book. That's right. And I was given one other book. I'm going to be looking at this book too in future on my channel. I'm going to revisit, yes, wait for it, David Bronstein's account of the Zurich International Chess Tournament in 1953. There was Smyslov, Geller, Bronstein, Najdorf, Szabo, Boleslavsky, Keres, Paul Keres, the great Kotov who used to work with Tal, is Gligorich, Reshevsky, Taimanov, Max Erva of all people, the Tiger, Tigran Petrosian, Yuri Averbach, and Stahlberg. Yeah, all the greats. That's it. So get excited, get pumped, right? Because when you come here on my channel, you see the best chess, right? And particularly, we all love to watch Hikaru and Eric Hansen play all the blitz and stuff like that. But it's great to revisit the chess of the past, to understand the atmosphere that was taking place. And it was electric. It was really electric. The world was shaken right up. The world was shaking. The whole planet was shaking all the way through the 60s when Mikhail Tal beat Bobby Fischer 4 times. That's right. He beat Bobby Fischer 4 times, leading up to that period where Bobby eventually broke through and won the World Championship in Reykjavik, Iceland in 72. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to play some blitz games. I'm all pumped. I'm all pumped. I hope you enjoyed that game between Aronian and the great Vishwanathan.